Let's begin now.
This is not a drill.
Repeat, this is not a drill.
Is that all you got?
Let's begin now.
What up? Oh, for sure.
Hi everybody. Hopefully I am now live on Rumble as well as TikTok. You can see the phone there on the screen if you're going live with me on Rumble, and I'll be responding to the TikTok comments over here. And we want to talk today. We want to talk about what's going on with the World Cup, because there's a big controversy with the World Cup, according to the mainstream media and the news over here in the UK, isn't there? And I and many other people who support the LGBTQ movement, and we do, feel that this is being weaponized against Muslim countries and has been hijacked by Western media and has been hijacked by the state powers in this country and the BBC to do some bashing of a Muslim country that we're not friends with. We're friends with the Saudi Arabians, and we don't bash them, and their human rights record, actually, when you look at it, is worse than Qatar's. And we'll get into that a little bit today, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But what I want to start off with is my experience, because I don't want this stream to be any, bashing of the LGBTQ community or anything like that. We support the LGBTQ movement. Of course we do. We support human rights for everybody and equal rights for everybody. But there's no doubt about it. The movement has been hijacked, just like every other movement gets hijacked by the powers that be, who, look at what they did to the Black Lives Matter movement a few years ago. They tried to turn that into something where, it was a money laundering scheme, etc. But, that's not essentially what the message was for it. The message is inclusivity for everybody, regardless of, their sexual preference or regardless of who they are ethnically or what their background is, or etc. We just want everybody to be equal. And my experience of the movement itself up close was a few years ago at Pride in London. And I want to talk a little bit about it because this is personal to me. I really do feel as if the powers that be are weaponizing this against an unsuspecting people. We were going to, we weren't going to Pride. Me and the missus weren't. We were going to a protest in Trafalgar Square that one of our friends were going to be at. We had no idea they were going to be there for Pride. But the protest was to raise awareness for Chelsea Manning. Now, Chelsea Manning used to be Bradley Manning, and changed the sex to female. And she was the person who released the Afghanistan war logs to WikiLeaks, who then published them. She was a whistleblower who was imprisoned by Obama because blowing the whistle on crimes in America apparently is unconstitutional and illegal. It isn't actually, if you look at it, but you know, that's a legal thing. But she basically, you know, if you've seen the Collateral Murder video, she was the person who released that to WikiLeaks. She was imprisoned as a result of that, and then right at the end of his tenure as presidency, President Obama commuted her sentence and released her. But when Trump came into office, he jailed her again because she wouldn't testify against her publisher. She wouldn't lie. And she was being tortured again for doing a great job and a service to her country. Remember, these were crimes that she blew the whistle on here. These were crimes against humanity. These were crimes where innocent people from Middle Eastern countries were being tortured in black sites in Abu Ghraib, and journalists were being mowed down by Apache helicopters. And then, you know, it was all lied about, and the families were lied about actually the reason why they were dead. They said they got caught in crossfire between two warring factions on the ground. No, they were killed by an Apache helicopter, by American pilots who were saying, you know, look at those dead bees. You've seen the video. So we were going to Trafalgar Square in support of Chelsea Manning. I had no idea that it was Pride, but when we got on the tube, me and the missus comes from London. When we got on the tube, we realised it must be Pride because everybody was in the rainbow colours, you know, and everybody was wearing wigs and makeup and etc. And my missus said to me, I look forward to it. So I thought, oh, this is going to be great. And she said, careful what you wish for, because it used to be wonderful, because it used to be at Finsbury Park. Pride did. It wasn't in the centre of London. And the missus said that, you know, Pride used to be wonderful. When it was in Finsbury Park, it was a real movement of people who were demanding, you know, equal rights for each other. But now, she said, it's more corporate, is what she said. But, you know, we thought nothing of it and thought, we're going to have a wonderful day. We're going to do this support for Chelsea Manning. And we got there and we were given a hat, a paper hat for free. They were just handing them out to everybody that passed, the people handing out these paper hats in LGBTQ colours, which I thought was really cool. So we were holding these hats, and there were so many people there, and we're talking right in the centre of London. And the first thing that we came across was a girl who had her face painted in wonderful colours, and she stormed off from this like stall that she had crying. She was in tears. And there was this guy with a clipboard, and he was shutting the stall down. And basically what had happened is she'd just gone there and set up, she was an artist, she'd just gone and set up her stall, and she was painting people's faces. We saw loads of people with painted faces. She was doing wonderful, and it was all glitter and everything. And this guy with the clipboard obviously came and said, "No, are you accredited? Have you got a licence?" And she was like, "No, I've not a licence. I've just come to enjoy the day and maybe make a bit of money and spread some joy." So he shut her down and confiscated all of her stuff. And her and her friend walked off, and she was in tears. And me and the missus just sat there. We stood there holding these paper hats. And it was like, it's that corporate, really? So we thought nothing of it, and we walked on about maybe another 10 minutes or so. And my wife slipped in sick. There was sick all over the place. People were drunk, but, you know, it was a party. And literally, no, it wasn't maybe 10 minutes, probably 2 minutes. We walked on just a little bit. And there was this black guy. And I don't want to pigeonhole anybody, but he was very black. And I think he must have come from African descent. And you heard his voice. And his voice was very loud and he was obviously of African descent. I probably, if I had to guess, he was probably a migrant who came to this country, you know, himself or his parents maybe did. But he had a thick African accent. And he had, I think it was on the back of his bike. Like a trailer. And on this trailer was like, there were hats, you know, Rastafarian hats in the LGBTQ colours, and there were scarves in the LGBT colours, and this was all obviously handmade, this stuff was. All of it. And he's shouting at about 6 policemen who were standing in front of him. And this is all going on with people walking past, paying no attention whatsoever. None. You know, they were all having a good time. It was Pride. And there was this black guy, and he's begging the policeman in front of him, please, you're taking my livelihood. Because obviously he wasn't licensed either to sell whatever it was in the centre of London. When it was Finsbury Park, people could do it, no problem. But it's gone to the centre of London, and it was a corporate affair now. You had to be licensed. This guy was crying, this black guy. He must have been 6'4". And you can ask my missus this. I'm not making this up. This is a factual, my recollection of the day. And they were taking all of his stuff because he wasn't an accredited salesman. And he was screaming, I'm desperate. Please, you're taking food off the table. The policeman didn't care. They took his shit. And everybody just walked past and paid no attention whatsoever to this guy who was having his life just turned upside down. We turned away, and my wife slipped in sick again. And she started crying. And I said, what's wrong? And she was like, I'm done. I can't help these people. They're not willing to help themselves, not willing to stand up for anything. There's 1 million people here, she said. 1 million people. They could demand anything. Anything. And she was upset and she was crying. And I tried to make things better. So I took the paper hat in the LGBTQ cause and I said, come here, darling. And I went to put it on her head. And just as I put it on her head, she went, no, because I saw this. For those of you on TikTok, let me just turn the camera around so you can see it. That's the picture. That's the paper hat that were given out. It had a Burger King logo on the middle of it, in the middle of it. They took it into... This movement had been hijacked by corporations and turned into a corporate gangbang in the centre of London. And the whole LGBTQ community were having a wonderful time and just enjoyed every second of it. We felt awful. You know, we got home and my wife looked at me and said, they could have demanded anything. There was 1 million people that used to go to Finsbury Park. They could have demanded anything. And what did they settle for? A paper hat with a Burger King logo in the centre in LGBTQ colours. Now, the reason I'm talking about this is not to come down on the LGBTQ community at all. It's to show how the movement is being hijacked by corporations who haven't got your best interests at heart. They really don't give a crap about you as long as they can make money. and the state entities that are doing it, they don't give a crap about your movement either. It's just a way for them to bash the other side. And I started this video talking about the World Cup and what the media coverage has been like over here. And I want to now come back to that. Because in my live stream the other day when I went live on Rumble and I didn't get the settings right, I've had no warnings, by the way, so I assume the settings are going okay on Rumble. Let me just check, actually. Let's see if I've got any Rumble rants. I've got no Rumble rants yet. I'm sure there will be one soon. But I've been talking about this, and I've been talking how they're using the LGBTQ community in this World Cup. And here is a legend. For those of you on TikTok, I'm showing a TikTok video of John Barnes, who's on TikTok. And I think he was on, where was it? Times Radio. And he gave this interview, and I want to show it now because this is brilliant. Take a listen.
There, you can be criminalized for being black in England. Should we have the Euros here? Black people are being stopped every day in the street. They're being stopped in their cars. They're being arrested for being black. And that's the only reason.
I would push back to say that there's a quantitative difference between there is no law which says that you can be jailed for being black, whereas there is a law that says you can be jailed for being gay.
Right.
And so I think there's a qualitative difference.
Yeah, okay. Well, when the police arrest black people for being black, is that unlawful? So the police are acting unlawfully. When they stop black people in the streets every day and there's no law, are they acting unlawfully? I would say yes. I would say yes, because that's not within the law of this country. So which country is worse? Where the authority...
This is a great point, isn't it? Which country's worse? You know, the police in this country, as we've found out in finding after finding and inquiry after inquiry, are inherently racist. And they keep stopping black people in this country and victimising them just for being black. And the reporter says, oh, well, there are laws against that. And he's like, well, yeah. There are laws against that, and they're still doing it. Who are we? It's like kept saying over the last few days. Who are we to be pointing fingers at Arab nations for the way that they treat gay people? And it's Arab nations, not just Qatar. It's all Arab nations, or many of them, and some other nations too, not just Arab nations. I know a lot of Indian families who are very dead set against gays. And we know lots of American... it's a problem in America too. So let me play the rest of this by John Barnes, because this is excellent. And then it's another 2 minutes. I won't interrupt again.
Authorities act unlawfully by discriminating against people when it's against the law to discriminate against them, or are in Qatar where it's against the law to be gay. And I can tell you, gay people aren't being arrested in Qatar for being gay. Well, first of all, the World Cup comes around once every 4 years. So after this World Cup, they're not going to be thinking about the World Cup for 4 years. They won't be thinking about it for 3 years. Really, in the year leading up to it is when you start thinking about how you play for your club and your form. And of course, as you rightly mentioned, this is probably a bit of a distraction in terms of what they're being asked to do, when in reality, we know that the players they don't really have much interest in whatever else is going on. They're being thrust into the limelight that, hey, let's support LGBT, let's take a knee, let's talk about human rights issues. But really, throughout their lives, they don't really think about that.
I lied. I am going to interrupt there because that's a really good point. This is flag waving, isn't it? It's like I support the latest thing, whatever the latest thing is. That's what he's pointing out there. You know, and it's not like that these players are making a big deal about this all their lives. It's not like they're on the front of the picket lines here. You know, remember the suffragettes got beaten the crap out of to get the vote, and they still didn't get it for a while outside the Houses of Parliament. Harry Kane wouldn't even take a yellow card for the movement. You know, so really, isn't this virtue signalling? Really, when it comes down to it, it's like we support the latest thing.
They don't think about it until it rears its ugly head, or until a microphone's thrown at them, and then they're being held up as beacons of virtue to then say they're the ones who are carrying it forward, which they don't. This is a societal issue. And of course,
so do we ask too much of our footballers then?
We absolutely do, and they have no control over it. Footballers could do nothing about changing people's perceptions. I don't know whether they think it themselves or whether we just absolve ourselves of responsibility to look at society and look at cultures and look at governments and just say, well, the footballers are going to do it, because the footballers can do nothing. The fact that Harry Kane is going to score a goal is not going to change people's perception. The fact that the World Cup is in Qatar is not going to make them change their laws. So therefore, and in fact, if you look at why are we so condescending and supercilious to feel that we can really make a change in terms of their attitude towards LGBT. That's not going to change at all, and we have to stop doing it. If we're going to go there, we have to be respectful of their culture. I don't agree with obviously homosexuality being illegal, but if we're going to say this is where the World Cup is, we have to be respectful of their culture, of their laws, of their religion. And when we go there, stop trying to force our way of thinking on them. Now, obviously, that isn't going to work. Nobody's ever forced to change culturally in the history. And if you understand colonialism, you know that that hasn't worked ever. So, of course, we have to enter into dialogue. We can't go there in a fashion and say, we're here to teach you. You're here to learn, particularly from a Black perspective. Because I remember 400 years ago, Europeans coming to Africa to civilize us and to teach us and to bring us in line with what they want. And, of course, that is not really what they were doing there.
See, this is a colonial attitude that he's talking about here that we've got in this country. And there's no doubt about it. That's what's being happening. We're trying to force these countries to change their ways. Brilliant interview by John Barnes. Legend. I've met him. He's a wonderful man. Told him what a legend he was as well. You know, what he talked about there about these footballers, you know, these are footballers that they don't really care. I'm sure they want good things for good people and bad things for bad people. But other than that, they're just reacting to, you know, a microphone being shoved in their face. It is virtue signalling. They're not on the front line of any protests here. And it's not to say that the footballers are in the wrong here. You know, we're asking too much of them too. This is a controversy that, in my opinion, is being forced. They are using this movement again for their own ends. And it's the LGBTQ movement here that's got to stand up and say, listen, we don't like the fact that you're doing this. And I really hope that they do. But from what I've seen, it's not happening. Who are we to force our way on any other nation around this world? Any other? Who are we, especially in the West, with our track record, and especially in Britain, with our colonial history? You know? We are the world's villains, actually, if you look at history. We have an awful record. We still are doing awful things around the world. For dictatorships in Africa, for instance, that are brutalizing their people. But we're supporting them because they're our friends. You know, Qatar, they're not our friends over Qatar. They're the wrong, they're our enemies, Qatar are. Remember, the politicians in this country, I bet you there's politicians in the Conservative Party right now that are still against gay marriage. In this country. Hillary Clinton over in America, I think she was against gay marriage until about 10 years ago. I think it was after Obama was president. I think she was Secretary of State before she finally changed her tune on it. Up until 5 minutes ago, our attitude was very much the same as the Qataris. If you know anything about history, and I do, you know that in World War II itself, it was thought, historians think that it was cut short by much as 2 years, and millions of lives were saved because of the genius of one gay man. Do you know that? His name was Alan Turing, and he cracked the Enigma code, him and his team. And it's thought that him cracking the Enigma code saved the millions of lives and cut the World War II short by as much as 2 years. Do you know what we did to him in the UK because he was a homosexual? We gave him a choice of imprisonment or chemical castration. He chose the latter, and it's thought that it drove him to suicide. This is not that long ago. This is like 40, 50 years ago. We've only just changed our tune on it. Who are we to be pointing fingers at anywhere, saying we're the moral authority here on any subject, especially when our own history is so abhorrent? Somebody pointed something out to me today. And I can't quite believe that it's true, but it is. With all this criticism of Qatar because of their human rights with regards to gays and lesbians and the LGBTQ community and how it's illegal, etc., and the crime, the criminal punishment for it. The 2026 FIFA World Cup is going to be held among other countries, but in the United States. The United States bombed so many countries so often in 2016 and killed so many innocent people. They ran out of bombs in Afghanistan. They bombed 7 countries in 2016. They're still, right now, to this day, illegally occupying 1/3 of Syria. And it just happens to be the 1/3 of Syria where all the resources are. America are stealing, the Syrian authorities are not in control of 91% of their own resources. 83% of Syria's oil production on a daily basis is stolen by the United States. Stolen. Do you think anybody at the BBC is going to be making a big deal about those human rights and those crimes against humanity and those international war crimes, let's face it, when it's held in America in 2026? Of course not. They're our friends. And that's what this is all about. This is,
the other day,
in my opinion, and I'm showing you stuff to back this up and back up my opinion, this is a movement that is being hijacked by the state and corporations to bash countries that we don't like and make money. They don't really care about the movement at all. I want to show you this video that I saw, and this will show you how the BBC have a different attitude when it comes to other Muslim countries in the world. Other Muslim countries that, let's face it, have the same laws as Qatar, but countries that are our friends. Take a look at this.
Beat Wales, and while people are celebrating this deserved win, the BBC on their studio had a different opinion. They choose to be bigots and xenophobic. Watch.
In terms of their attitude to the game and their, let's call it gamesmanship, you can call it something else at home if you like, and they did just that, and they just stayed on the right side of the law for the referee. In another game they might not have done.
Yeah, that's their culture, that's their way of doing it, and that's why Carlos Queiroz, he fits really well the Iranian national team, and that's he struggled in South America. He failed with Colombia to qualify, then he failed with Egypt to qualify as well, and then he went back right before the World Cup now and guided Iran, where he worked already for a long time. So this is not by coincidence. This is all purposely. This is just part of their culture. That's how they play it, and they work the referee. You saw the bench always jumping off, always working the the linesman and the fourth referee on the sideline.
Constantly in their ear.
Constantly in their ears. They're constantly in your face on the field. I mean, Kiefer Moore probably will tell you lots of stories after this game today. He had a lot of little incidents that we did not even see out here. This is their culture, and they kind of make you lose your focus. They make you lose your concentration and what's really important to you. This fits their culture.
That's the nature,
basically.
isn't it? You know?
Yeah, they kind of work it out. They have 5 people around them. They talk it out.
The linesman was from Wales. Well, his name was Wales, but he's from Trinidad and Tobago. But that didn't work for them.
Now, will the BBC...
I'll play the rest of that video in a minute, but it's their culture. Can you see there? Because it was Iran, and Iran are our enemies. You can see the BBC saying it's their culture. There were fouls going on in that game, but you see it. You see that in every game of football. I've seen games of football where the French against the Germans have nearly killed each other. You know, going back to games in the 80s. I've seen games with the Argentinians where, you know, there's been fights break out. But you didn't say have the BBC saying anything about the French and the Germans. Oh, it's their culture at the time. No, but because it's Iran, it's okay to bash them and blame the culture of the football. They did brilliant against Wales. I'm going to play the rest of this video. This guy nails it.
Have the same energy for the Polish players and their attitude in today's games against Saudi Arabia. Their fouls were over the top. Players like Matty Cash should have been sent off. This guy should have had a red card. While on the other hand, this group in this studio, Brits and this German, only speak about it when it's coming from a national team with an ethnic background, especially Muslims, and no one is raising questions about his comment, even this guy, who's also a person of color. Maybe they brought him just to add some color and some ethnicity to their studio. Honestly, their xenophobia and bigotry is full display. And this woman says, we're gonna call it a game, but you can call it whatever you want in your home. Does it get more disgusting than this? None of them stopped him. None of them. It's fine. It's okay. It's okay to make these comments. The other day, Iran beat Wales, and while people are celebrating this deserved win...
That's a good point. None of them stopped him. None of them stopped him. They just let him get away with those comments, which are inherently racist. They went on to play Saudi Arabia and they didn't have those comments with Saudi Arabia. Poland were... Saudi Arabia are our friends though, you know? So there's less bashing of them. But when it comes to Iran, Qatar, it's okay to bash those countries. Let's not talk about it when it comes to Saudi Arabia or any of the other countries, Muslim countries that are our friends. This is a movement that's been hijacked and that's been weaponized by state entities for their own means. Like I say, the next World Cup is going to be held in America. And America, without a doubt, are the biggest human rights violators on the planet. They have a drone program that bombs indiscriminate countries around the world and kills over 90% innocent people. Those are the Pentagon's own figures. That's not me plucking a figure out of the air. That's the Pentagon's own figures. Yeah, 90% of the people that they kill in the drone program are innocent people around the world in the Middle East. They're bombing them. Why? Well, I suppose it's their culture, isn't it? It's sad. It really is. You know, do you think anybody's going to be making a big deal when the World Cup is held in America in 4 years' time? Do you think anybody's going to be making a big deal over the fact that America have literally legalized slave labor? It's just in their prison system. Just in their prison system. The amount of products that their prisoners make for the police and military is astounding. Article in The Guardian from 28th of September. Slavery by any name is wrong. The push to end forced labour in prisons. Kamala Harris, the second in command in America, the vice president, actually argued when she was Attorney General for California, she argued against the early release of prisoners because of the effect that it would have on the labour pool. I'm serious. At the time you had California wildfires and the prisoners were getting paid $1 an hour to fight fires. And then you got Kamala Harris, after they'd saved people in California fighting fires, arguing against their early release because they were so useful. They have 4% of the global population, 25% of the world's prisoners. This is legalized slavery. Do you think anybody in 4 years' time is going to be making a big deal about that on the BBC? And do you think they're not going to show the opening ceremony in 4 years' time in America as a result of their, abhorrent violations of human rights? Remember, was it 2016 or 2018 when they threatened to arrest the judges if they found that America had, at the International Criminal Court, if they found America had done war crimes. Who are we to be forcing our way of life on any other country when it wasn't 5 minutes ago that we had just the same laws, if not worse, as those countries do? And also, we're killing just so many innocent people around the world. You know, look at what went on in Afghanistan. The United States figures, their own figures, say they killed 36,000 innocent Afghanis. That's their own figures. And historically, those figures coming from themselves, when they always err on the side of caution, shall we say. Those figures are always lower than it actually turns out to be in the future. They say 36,000 innocent people in Afghanistan died. And then, and why, by the way, why did they die? Well, because we had to go and get Bin Laden, you remember? Because the Taliban were hiding Bin Laden. Do you remember? That's the reason that they went into Afghanistan. The Taliban were hiding Bin Laden and they wouldn't hand him over. Well, Bin Laden was found and killed allegedly in Pakistan a decade ago or more. So why did we carry on in Afghanistan for all those years? Killing all those innocent people? Who are we to be pointing the finger at any other country in the world and saying your shit stinks? And to the LGBTQ community, we support your cause. I'm sure everybody in the chat does on TikTok listening to this, and everybody on Rumble, I'm sure they do support your cause. But this is clearly being weaponized here to do some Muslim bashing and some anti-Muslim bigotry, isn't it? Let's face it. We didn't see any protests from the BBC against China during the Beijing Olympics in 2008, did we? You know, they're abhorrent human rights laws, apparently, haven't they? According to Western media. It's a bigoted point of view. That's the point I'm trying to make. And to the people in the LGBTQ community, please, we're on your side. But stop letting them weaponize your movement. We went to, the last time Pride was on, this year, we weren't going to Pride, we were going to a protest at Piccadilly for Assange, and Pride was on. Do you know defence companies now have a float at Pride? BAE Systems had their own float at Pride. A defence company that makes a fortune, selling weapons and bombs to Saudi Arabia as they committed genocide against the Yemeni people. Okay, that's it really. Let's go into the comments on TikTok and say hello in the comments. Have we got any Rumble rants? Oh, I really hope. Come on, somebody say hello to me on Rumble. It says 6 watching. Come on, somebody say hello. Somebody type something into the chat, please. Let me know it works. Anne Kakalakis says, no one likes to look at the obvious. Bravo for your info and truth. Thank you, Anne. I'm desperately trying not to do any anti-LGBTQ bigotry here at all. That's not the point I'm trying to make here at all. The point I'm trying to make is look at what's happening. You could demand anything. You really could. There are millions of you. Millions more who support you. You really could demand everything. And you've settled for having corporations and the state use your movement to weaponize your movement and bash other countries over the head, when it wasn't 5 minutes ago that let's face it, you're still fighting for rights in this country, aren't you? LGBTQ people, and especially in America as well. You're still fighting for your rights in this country. How can we be pointing fingers at any other country and saying, that's terrible what you're doing? And more to the point, from what I can tell as well, the World Cup in Qatar has been an absolute triumph. I've seen no reports of any violence or anything like that. And I saw my mum yesterday, went around and saw how she was doing. She said, yes, it's because there's no alcohol. There's no lager louts over there. Everybody's having a good time and getting on and dancing. You don't need to get drunk to have a good time and start a fight. You wouldn't want to do it in Qatar anyway. You know? But there's lots we can learn from these countries. And if we embrace them with an open heart and an open mind and stop judging them when we have so much to be judged on ourselves. That's all I wanted to say. Hi Sarah, how are you? Hello King JW. Oh, thanks for the whites, mate. The Sesame Street Kid, hello mate, says we want people to live by our rules when they come here, but can't respect their culture when there. That's a really good point. That's a very good point. We're the world's biggest criminals, aren't we? Let's face it. Us and America. You know, we're like, whatever America are doing, we're right there with them, pulling the strings. When people come here, we demand that they respect our way of life. Why should it be different when we go anywhere else? Why is it when people from other countries come here to live, they're immigrants and illegals, and whenever we go elsewhere to live, they're expats? Great point. Nikki D says, hey Gordon, looking good, bro. Thank you, Nikki. My hair needs cutting. I'm going to get my hair cut tomorrow. Can't wait. Titch Homer says, hi Titch, that's my missus by the way in the chat. But if we start seeing Middle Eastern people as humans, it'll be harder to bomb them. Of course it will. You know, if we start seeing these people as humans, we can't support the wars, can we? Nick Driscoll and Nikki D. Wow, that's a blast from the past. How are you, Nick? Good to see you again, mate. All right, that's it, everybody. That's my first live stream on Rumble, hopefully, that's gone without a hitch. I still can't go live on YouTube for anybody who has I was wondering where I've been. I can't go live on YouTube because they've stopped me from not just going live, but from uploading any videos at all. I think that might be over tomorrow. So I might do a video on YouTube tomorrow just saying, listen, you're going to have to subscribe to me on Rumble going forward, because it's clear with YouTube, as I explained the other day, that they're going to be fine with misinformation and disinformation being spread on their platform as long as it's in the direction that the establishment wants. But if you say something that's factually true that they don't like, they're going to censor you for misinformation. You know, they are literally punishing people for telling the truth on YouTube. So yeah, we've got to go. I've been trying to shift for about a year. This will be the catalyst to do it, hopefully. Be good to see you live more often, pal, says the Sesame Street Kid. I'm going to go live more often. I'm especially going to go live more. When I do this, I will go live on TikTok as well. Although you can't see the screen or maybe hear the videos on TikTok, I need to keep doing this because I've got to try and cajole TikTok into giving me a stream key. And if I can get a stream key from them, and then I'll be able to go live on Rumble and TikTok at the same time through my software on my PC. And you'll be able to see everything that you can see on Rumble at the moment on the TikTok chat. And that will be really beneficial. YouTube block the truth, says King JW. Yeah, absolutely. GDL for Life says Odyssey is better than YouTube. I'll also be opening an Odyssey channel as well, because I've got to integrate things to my website. All right, that's it, everybody, for today. I'm going to go off now and watch the other football match. I hope you enjoyed the live stream. Please take the information that I've given you in with the sentiment that it's meant to be took in. I don't want this video to be any anti-LGBTQ bigotry, just as I don't want there to be any anti-Muslim bigotry either. We need to start embracing people's cultures rather than demonizing each other, because if we carry on this way, I can not see good things happening. All right. Take care, everybody, and I shall see you again soon. Sign up to my mailing list at my website and you'll get a notification of when and where I go live in future. Take care, everybody. Buona ostente. All right, everybody on TikTok. Thank you very much. Yeah, go through to my website, sign up to my mailing list. You'll get a notification of when I go live again. I'm going to be going live at least 2 times a week. I'll be going on holiday in a couple of weeks, but at least 2 times a week I'll go live. And also you'll have podcasts, and I'll do some articles as well going forward. All right, take care, everybody. Bye-bye. I think that worked.